That feels good. That feels absolutely wonderful. Okay.
Feels appropriate.
You think so?
Feels appropriate. That's what we're gonna do. It's just gonna be half an hour of applause for you.
That's overwhelming. That's an overwhelming response.
That's what you deserve. That's how you make people feel.
That's what you deserve.
No, that's what you deserve, my friend. And I mean, can I tell you? I mean this honestly. I was scrolling on my TV the other day, and I was bouncing around everything between like YouTube and then going to Netflix and then bouncing like to different apps and watching. It's amazing to see the impact that you have had on the culture. Obviously, no, really, with Key and Peele. Some of the funniest moments and ideas still existing on TikTok, kids loving them today, and then you move into like what you did with Keanu, and then the new range of movies. I do want to understand this.
Okay.
You're one of the funniest people out there. You were for a very long time putting out some of the funniest content, and now it's just like scary shit. Is this for balance? What happened?
Is it weird that I think it's funny? Is it? I think the comedy part of my career is still going. I think it's still active.
Wow.
And part of that, I talk about it as sort of like the difference between comedy and horror is the music. And it really does, it does feel like that. When we...
I'm sorry. Now I'm picturing the scene in Get Out where the guy's running, like, he's running at the camera and he's like head on, but now I'm picturing like... I mean...
Just like Benny Hill, and it's funny.
It's funny.
And it's very funny. And I could have done it. I was at the finish line with that film. I could have gone either way.
It would have been a very different film.
But thank you for saying that. I love comedy. It became very complex.
Right.
Somehow making comedy in this world, as it is complex, I think, making anything or getting anything accomplished in this world.
It feels like you were the only person who wasn't surprised about the filmmaker you would turn into, and I think it's because you came from this world of sketch, and sketch always seems unplanned and unprepared. It seems off the cuff, but there's so much work that goes into it, and now you've turned into, or rather you've been revealed to us as this filmmaker. Like when I was watching Nope, you're sitting in that movie theater. Nobody knows what's going to happen, why it's going to happen, how it's going to happen. You successfully got people to not spoil any of the plot points. I don't know how you did that. Because people who saw, they're like, have you seen Nope? I was like, no, I haven't. How is it? They're like,
Nope. Yeah.
But you create a feeling.
Thank you. Well, I just have this love of my audience, and I think what my audience has been telling me and responding to is that very thing is something that they love, and that they're going to show up for it. And so, when you say I knew, when I wrote Get Out, I didn't even know if they would let me direct it. I didn't. Yeah, that's how much has changed in my life. I was trying to push this thing, and so luckily I found a wonderful home and wonderful producers for it. But when I made Nope, then I was like, okay, now hold on a second. They're gonna let me direct a film. They're gonna let me direct a big movie.
Right.
And so there's a responsibility there.
Is there a pressure? Do you ever like feel the weight of your own pressure? Because Get Out is one of the greatest movies that has ever been made. From that moment onwards, everyone is expecting you to create the greatest movie ever made. There's always going to be that pressure. There's always going to be the criticism. There's always going to be the critics. Do you feel that as well, or do you find yourself just making what you want to make?
Well, a lot of people hate Get Out. And there's a certain...
Wait, who are these people?
Well, they're out there. They are out there.
Oh, wow, okay.
I still get hate from that era. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't like the agency that it brought me and other people. I truly feel that. And so, and in Key and Peele as well, you realize people are going to respond. But there's always going to be people who don't respond, and that's okay. That's part of the adventure of doing something risky, doing something you're not supposed to do, is that you're going to be pissing people off, but that's okay.
I wonder if some people are pissed off at what you illuminate in the stories that you tell, because it's one thing to create a horror movie. It's one thing to create thrill and suspense. It's another thing to weave into that story everything that we're experiencing in real life. You know, there are themes of race, there are themes of gender, there are themes of, like, everything is encapsulated in a story. It's like, you went, what if there's racism, and what if there's sexism, and what if there's also a monster? Which seems, you know?
Which is very much the real world. It's, once again, a documentary, but no. Yeah, you know, I mean, this one wanted to be about this, you know, this idea that was sort of forming in my head that there's some people, there are some things in this world that are these bad miracles. These are these things that are so entertaining that that we're blinded to the danger of them.
Wow.
And so I wanted to make a film about the human response to these things and how we interact with it and how we will chase it off a cliff.
Wow. You do that with everything, though, because when they told me you had a podcast, I thought you were going to be interviewing people. I thought it was going to be a conversation. They were like, no, he made a horror podcast. So I was like, well, but that's not possible. And then they sent it to me, and I was like, oh, this is terrifying. Because I just have to use my ears. We actually have a clip here. We can play a little bit for you.
Yeah.
Just listen to it. You can close your eyes if you want. Listen.
911, what is your emergency?
I need to report an accident. This guy, he's hurt his head. There's a lot of blood.
Is he still breathing, sir?
I'm not sure if he... Yes, he's definitely still breathing. His head looks like it's cracked. Jesus, there's blood everywhere.
That's what heads do, Rick.
I'm sorry, what?
So, important to say, directed by Mimi O'Donnell, brilliantly directed. This was something, you know, all of us at Monkey Paw Productions were very excited about, like trying to make the scariest horror podcast of all time. And
do you know what people normally use podcasts for? Are you familiar?
Sort of like you drive in.
You're on like a drive, you know.
Yeah.
Some people play podcasts to go to sleep.
I've heard of this.
And then this slides into your playlist.
You know, and this is something we talk about in horror all the time, which is this idea that it's the things you don't see that are the scariest.
It is terrifying, because you've created this podcast that is essentially, it sounds real. It sounds like an actual conspiracy theorist, and we're following him and his journey of creating this radio show that sort of sets in a pre-Trump world, and he's talking about everything that's happening he's digging into conspiracies, and it feels too real, Jordan.
This is brilliant, and Tracy Letts wonderfully plays this there, and this whole Faustian thing. It ends up being. I'm not going to give away what what is going on, but there's something of as discussed, we need to. But it's a story that needs to be told in the sound medium, because there is a sound element to this parasite, and it's scary. So that's all I'll say.
When you tell your stories, and this is something that I feel you've always done, whether it's in a sketch, whether it's in a movie, and now even in a podcast, it feels like you are commenting on the aspects of the world that we oftentimes take for granted or ignore, because they're almost seamlessly happening to us. And you take them, you amplify them, and then it becomes a horror we can't look away from. Like, why do you think it's important for us to focus on those moments, to focus on what's happening in real life?
Well, it is. It's important for us to pay attention to the real life monsters. And I think it's important and it's important for us to feel fear as it is. You know, so much of this doom scrolling and stuff. It really is about us. The fact that fear is something we bury. Fear is something that we don't like. We don't like that feeling. We will convert it into other things.
Yeah.
And so, anyway,
it sort of numbs us as we scroll. Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah. Did I answer the question with that?
Well, can I just say, I've loved everything that you've created. I enjoy how original your art is. I also really appreciate, you know, how you work with the talent that you work with. I mean, Keke Palmer, people have been loving her forever. To see her in the movie, to see what you did with her. No, obviously Daniel You know, we've loved them since forever. You don't just create a story, you also create stars. You know, you also give people an opportunity to shine on the screen. And I would love to know what you look for in these performers that you think will, I mean, as it does, successfully convey the feelings that you're trying to get to the people.
Well, you know, first of all, I'm trying to hitch my wagon to these moving trains, right? I'm trying to find people who are ready to do their greatest role, you know, and in that perfect place. So I very much, I'm so thankful that, you know, the Daniels and the Kikis of the world will come out and do it. But I'm also looking for somebody who is really smart enough to take over the character for me. I do the work to build this character up to a certain point, and then I need somebody to come in and become the expert. So I can ask them, how does Emerald feel? And she can answer that question. We can kind of move from there. And so, you know, I have the privilege of working with people like Daniel and like Kiki, who are just, you know, the best actors in the world.
And then we have the privilege of enjoying everything that you all create together. The privilege of having you on the show. Thank you, my friend. Absolute joy. Thank you again. Jordan Peele, everybody.